This recording is for the mini-Q documents 2 and 3. This is to annotate document 3. So the first thing that we need to remember is our 4 annotation steps. Take a moment right now and review those 4 steps if you haven't already done so or you can't remember what they are. So the first thing we need to do is we need to remember what our prompt is. Our prompt is the same for every single document here. We are trying to explain why Islam may have spread so quickly, trying to figure out why did that happen, how did that happen, what different factors may have contributed to that rapid spread. Step 2 is to read through and to bold and define any words that are unknown. So I'm going to read straight through here. I want you to be following along on your own document. Bold any words that you're unsure of. Here we go, document 3. This source are verses from the Quran. So these are actual verses that have been translated into English. Those who submit to God and accept the true faith, who are devout, sincere, patient, humble, charitable, and pure, who fast and are ever mindful of God, on these, both men and women, God will bestow forgiveness and rich reward. 33:35. Whoever killed a human being, except as punishment for murder or other villainy, shall be deemed as having killed all mankind, and whoever saved a human life shall be deemed as having saved all mankind. Verse 532. But the believers who do good works, both men and women, shall enter paradise. They shall not suffer the least injustice. Verse 124. Do not devour one another's property by unjust means, nor bribe the judges with it in order that you may wrongfully and knowingly usurp other people's possessions. Verse 188. So take a moment right now and pause the video if you need to, and all the words that you bolded, take some time right now and find the definition. You can Google it and then leave a comment with the definitions next to it, so that way as you reread, you'll be able to have the definitions for you right there. So take a few minutes and do all of your bolded words now. Next up, we're going to read through again, and this time we're going to highlight information and write comments to ourselves that's going to remind us why we highlighted that information. Because remember, we're trying to answer, why did Islam spread so quickly? So we are on the lookout for information that's going to help us understand and explain how these ideas may be spread so fast. So again, I'm going to read it through all the way through. You should be following along on your student version. Those who submit to God and accept the true faith, who are devout, sincere, patient, humble, charitable, and pure, who fast and are ever mindful of God, on these, both men and women, God will bestow forgiveness and rich rewards. Whoever killed a human being except as punishment for murder or other villainy shall be deemed as having killed all mankind, and whoever saved a human life shall be deemed as having saved all mankind. But the believers who do good works, both men and women, shall enter paradise. They shall not suffer the least injustice. Do not devour one another's property by unjust means, nor bribe the judges with it in order that you may wrongfully and knowingly usurp other people's possessions. So there's a few things here that I want to draw your attention to. The first one is in this first verse here, where it says, on these, both men and women, God will bestow forgiveness and rich reward. Now, we've talked about this a little bit before in class. We've talked about the significance of mentioning women here. So something that I want us to think about is, who would have liked this? On these, both men and women, God will bestow forgiveness and rich rewards. In particular, women may have liked this because historically, we've talked about this before in class, they were not always treated fairly in Arabia. So this teaching, this verse from the Quran, maybe would have appealed to women in particular because historically they were not always treated equally or fairly in Arabia. So women may have liked this because they were not always treated fairly. Now, this isn't the only verse here that mentions women. And also, we also have this one here, this third verse. but the believers who do good works, both men and women, shall enter paradise. Now, it's talking about paradise. They mean heaven. So this one here is showing that according to these verses, men and women have equal chance of getting to heaven. Again, that's going to be a big deal for women in Arabia because historically, that was not always the case. They were not always offered the same things as men. And so these verses, though, are showing that according to these teachings, men and women are getting an equal opportunity here to get themselves to heaven. The other verse that I want to draw your attention to is this last one. Now, before we reread this one and we highlight some things, I want us to remember just how difficult it was to survive in Arabia. There was a lot of fighting going on before Islam came around. People were raiding each other for resources just to survive, but that wasn't the only reason that people were raiding and stealing from each other. People were stealing from each other just because they were also more powerful than maybe another person or another tribe. So not only was raiding going on just for survival, but raiding and stealing was happening because people in tribes just wanted more things. They were maybe a little greedy. So this particular verse, the one I want to draw your attention to is this first sentence here, or the first part. Do not devour one another's property by unjust means. So the first thing I want us to pay attention to is the word devour. Now, in this context, it does not mean devour like to eat. So we don't have people eating each other's property here, but rather think about what it means to devour something. So like when you're so hungry that you just want to devour the entire pizza, you want to be greedy with that pizza. You want to eat the whole thing because you are just so desperate. You're so hungry. So think about it kind of in that context. In this context, devour means to take, but to take with such enthusiasm and to be so greedy that you are taking everything. And you're taking it by unjust means, meaning unfair means. So you're stealing it. So this verse here is saying, do not do that. Do not be greedy with one another's property by unjust or unfair means. So I'm going to put that in my comment here. Do not be greedy and take another's property by in an unfair way. Okay, do not be greedy and take another's property in an unfair way. So this one here can be pretty significant because we know that the raiding for resources was still happening. That was a matter of survival. And so people kind of that was kind of an exception to this here. But rather, this is referring to stealing other things in an unfair way, being sneaky and being greedy. And so even though we still have raiding happening with outside communities in order for people to get resources to survive, this verse is saying don't be greedy and just take things unfairly. Don't just steal things for really no reason at all. So this maybe would have made people feel just a little bit safer. Maybe not by much, but if ever so slightly, it made them feel just a little bit safer that their belongings, their lives, and their things were not going to be stolen just because. It may have appealed to some because it maybe would have made them feel just a little bit safer. So this may have made people feel a little safer, just a little bit. Maybe not by much, but it maybe would have helped a little. Now for step 4, we need to write a 1 to 2 sentence summary that explains the main idea of this document. Now, if we remember, this document was verses from the Quran. So just in the same way that verses from the Christian Bible can give us basic teachings of that religion, verses from the Quran can also give us basic teachings of that religion. So this document, this is one option that you could say. Remember, we want to be general and be broad, not too specific here in these summaries. Keep it simple. The document explains some basic teachings of Islam. So once you've written that 1 to 2 sentence summary, you've accomplished step 4 of annotation, and you're done with your document 3 annotation. We will do the writing portion again when we get back together in class.